My name is Susan Boyle. I'm nearly 48, and that's just one side of me. I come from Blackburn near Bathgate, West Lothian. Currently unemployed, but still looking. I've been a carer for my mother, though, for 2 years, and I'm going to sing for you on...
Remember Susan Boyle, the shy, unassuming woman who stunned the world with her incredible voice on Britain's Got Talent? It's been over a decade since that unforgettable moment. But where is she now? From humble beginnings to international fame. Let's dive into what Susan Boyle's life looks like today, and how she's evolved since capturing our hearts. Remember that moment in 2009 when Susan Boyle walked onto the Britain's Got Talent stage and the audience immediately judged her? Simon Cowell did too. But in the next 90 seconds, she went from the lady with the cat to the voice that broke the internet. Fast forward nearly 15 years, and Susan's life is a full-blown fairy tale. Minus the glass slipper and prints, but definitely with much more glitter. These days, Susan's passion for singing hasn't wavered one bit. She's still chasing dreams and hitting notes that most of us can only dream about in the shower. But her rise to fame, that's a story worth reliving, which we will discuss later. Before her audition, Susan had lived a quiet life in her little Scottish village, singing at church and working small jobs to make ends meet. Then came that audition. The crowd's skepticism was practically audible when she stepped onto the stage. She looked nervous, Simon looked bored, and the audience looked ready to cringe. And then she opened her mouth. Her voice, so powerful and raw, instantly silenced every doubter in the room. By the time she finished her rendition of I Dreamed a Dream from Les Miserables, the auditorium had erupted in thunderous applause. Even Simon's eyebrows shot up in what can only be described as a genuine shock, a rare sight. Within days, Susan Boyle's audition was everywhere. It became the most watched video of 2009, outpacing even the inauguration of President Obama. Susan Boyle's performance wasn't just impressive, it hit people right in the feels. She managed to connect with millions around the world. Sure, she came second on Britain's Got Talent, but let's be honest, nobody remembers who won anyway. Susan's journey was just getting started, riding the wave of her sudden stardom. She dropped her debut album, I Dreamed a Dream. And boy, did people dream. The album smashed records, with Amazon struggling to keep up with the pre-orders. When it finally hit shelves, it skyrocketed to the top of the charts worldwide. Susan went from a small-town singer to a global superstar overnight. But fame isn't all glitz and glamour. It comes with baggage. Over the years, Susan has had to juggle the pressures of the spotlight and the unpredictable nature of showbiz. While she's continued to release albums and perform to adoring audiences, her media presence has toned down a bit, probably for her sanity. Let's face it, even celebrities need a break from the constant flash of cameras. Yet, Susan's accomplishments speak for themselves. With over 120 gold and platinum albums and more than 25 million records sold in 35 countries, she's not just a singer, she's a living legend. And in 2024, she's still going strong, using her platform to raise awareness for autism spectrum disorder, ASD. Susan Boyle's rise to fame is nothing short of incredible. I mean, going from a small Scottish town to global stardom. That's the stuff movies are made of. Born into a family with musical talent, Susan got her love of singing from her dad, a 1-2 veteran who also had a side gig as a pub entertainer. Her mom, a brilliant pianist, was like her first music teacher, constantly encouraging her to sing her heart out. Karaoke night at their house must have been legendary. But Susan's journey wasn't all sunshine and catchy tunes. Growing up, she dealt with bullying and a lot of self-doubt, partly because she believed she had a learning disability caused by oxygen deprivation at birth. School wasn't her thing either. She left with hardly any qualifications, and her confidence didn't come with a manual. Then, in her early 50s, she got a life-changing diagnosis, Asperger's syndrome. Finally, everything started making sense for her. With that clarity, Susan didn't just stop at understanding herself. Oh no, she went full superhero mode, becoming a champion for autism awareness. She used her newfound fame to smash stereotypes and educate people about autism. Now, let's take a little drive through memory lane and discuss where Susan's passion started. As the youngest of 9 kids, Susan Boyle grew up in the small town of Blackburn, West Lothian. Her dad, Patrick, was a miner, a World War II veteran, and apparently quite the crooner at a local spot called the Bishop's Blaze. Her mom, Bridget, juggled shorthand typing and raising enough kids to field a football team. Both were born in Motherwell, Lanarkshire, but the family also had ties to County Donegal, Ireland. Susan's roots were as deep as her talent. Born when her mom was 45, Susan came into the world with some drama. For years, she thought a tricky birth that left her briefly deprived of oxygen caused a learning disability. Fast forward to 2012, and she found out she'd been misdiagnosed all along. Turns out she's on the autism spectrum, with an IQ that's above average. So basically, she's been underestimating herself her whole life. While most of us are still struggling with Wordle, the school wasn't exactly her favorite chapter. She left with few qualifications, endured bullying, and was probably more focused on surviving than thriving. But Susan wasn't about to let that define her. She joined government training programs, sang at local venues, and kept her dreams alive one note at a time. Her musical journey started with vocal lessons from Fred O'Neill, and she even tried acting at the Edinburgh Acting School. She participated in the Edinburgh Fringe Festival and sang during her church's pilgrimages to Knock Shrine in Ireland. In 1995, she auditioned for My Kind of People with Michael Barrymore. It didn't launch her into stardom, but she wasn't giving up. By 1998, she was all in, recording songs like Cry Me a River and Killing Me Softly at Heartbeat Studio. She poured her savings into a professional demo and sent it to anyone who'd listen. Record companies, radio stations, you name it. It wasn't until her iconic Britain's Got Talent audition years later that the world finally caught up to Susan's incredible voice. And those early tracks, they went viral, and even the internet couldn't ignore them. By 1999, Susan Boyle was already showing her musical chops. Or West Lothian. She recorded a track for a charity CD called Music for a Millennium Celebration. Sounds of West Lothian. Only 1,000 copies were made, so it's practically a collector's item now. One early reviewer, Amber McNaught from the West Lothian Herald and Post, gushed over Susan's rendition of Cry Me a River, calling it heartbreaking, and admitting it was stuck on repeat in her CD player. Susan was breaking hearts before she even went viral. Years later, that same recording resurfaced online after her big Britain's Got Talent moment. And hello! Magazine declared it sealed her fate as a bona fide singing star. Better late than never, right? Of course. Susan didn't just waltz onto the BGT stage overnight. Her mom was her biggest fan, constantly encouraging her to take her talent beyond the local singing competitions and the parish church. But Susan had her doubts. She famously skipped an X Factor audition, convinced they were picking people for their looks. Honestly, she might have been onto something there. And when it came to Britain's Got Talent, almost threw in the towel again, thinking she was too old for the competition. Thankfully, her vocal coach, Fred O'Neill, gave her the pep talk she needed. Susan, get out there and show them what you've got. What finally pushed Susan to go for it? Her mom. After losing her, Susan felt a deep need to honor her memory by sharing her voice with the world. So when she stepped onto that stage, it wasn't just about chasing a dream. It was about paying tribute to the person who always believed in her. And with that unforgettable performance, Susan didn't just honor her mom. She left millions of us wondering how we ever doubted her in the first place. In August 2008, Susan Boyle decided to take a shot at fame by auditioning for Britain's Got Talent. After a quick tryout in Glasgow, she was given the green light to join the show as contestant number 43212. When she stepped onto the stage at the Clyde Auditorium, she casually mentioned she wanted to be as big as Elaine Paige. Then she sang I Dreamed a Dream from Les Miserables. And let's say, jaws hit the floor. The episode aired in April 2009, pulling in over 10 million viewers, and the audience went from skeptical side-eyes to total shock. Even Judge Amanda Holden admitted it was a massive wake-up call. The reaction completely blew away Susan. Elaine Paige said Susan was a role model and even offered to sing a duet with her. Her performance didn't just win hearts. It boosted ticket sales for Les Miserables in Vancouver. The show's producer, Cameron McIntosh, called her rendition heart-touching and uplifting. On to the semi-finals, Susan nailed Memory from Cats and dominated the public vote. Everyone thought she had the finals in the bag. But in a surprise twist, she came second to Diversity, a dance group that probably didn't expect to beat the internet's new favorite singer. Still, 3 million people tuned in, making it a record-breaking finale. After that, things started getting rough. The press couldn't get enough of Susan, and not always in a good way. They started poking into her personal life and mental health, which wasn't exactly helping her cope with the sudden fame. After the finals, she ended up in a private psychiatric clinic, completely drained. In an uncharacteristic moment of kindness, Simon Cowell offered to let her skip the BGT tour. Even the Prime Minister sent her well wishes. But Susan's family reassured everyone she wasn't giving up. She got an invite to perform at the White House for Independence Day. Susan said, "I know what they were thinking, but why should it matter as long as I can sing? It's not a beauty contest." And she was right. Talent speaks louder than looks or expectations. 3 days after checking into the clinic, Boyle returned and announced she'd joined the Britain's Got Talent tour. Health concerns? What health concerns? She showed up for 20 out of the 24 shows, leaving audiences in cities like Aberdeen, Edinburgh, Dublin, Sheffield, Coventry, and Birmingham thrilled. Even the Belfast Telegraph couldn't help but gush, saying, despite reports of crumbling under pressure, she performed like a seasoned pro. Then came November 23, 2009, and Boyle dropped her debut album, I Dreamed a Dream. It wasn't just an album, it was a phenomenon, packed with songs like Wild Horses, You'll See, Cry Me a River, and of course, I Dreamed a Dream. It smashed records faster than you could say Susan Boyle. In the UK, it became the fastest-selling debut album ever, with 411,020 copies flying off the shelves in just 1 week, leaving Leona Lewis's spirit in the dust. Over in the US, Boyle proved she wasn't just a one-country wonder. Her album sold a jaw-dropping 701,000 copies in its first week. That's the kind of debut artists dream about, or in Susan's case, dream a dream about. And the whole thing didn't even end there. The album topped the Billboard charts for 6 weeks and sold over 3 million copies in the US by the end of the year, narrowly losing the top spot to Taylor Swift's Fearless. Still, Boyle had the last laugh. It was the best-selling physical album in 2009. Turns out people still like holding an actual CD in their hands. Globally, it sold over 2 million copies in its first week, making it the fastest-selling debut by a female artist. Even Italy couldn't resist, and it became the first album by a non-Italian artist to top their charts in its debut month. As if that wasn't enough, Susan capped off the year with her TV special, I Dreamed a Dream, The Susan Boyle Story. It featured a duet with Elaine Paige and drew 10 million viewers in the UK. In the US, it became the most watched show in the history of the TV Guide network. Not bad for a lady who surprised everyone on stage just a year earlier with her golden voice. Susan Boyle decided to be a bit different with her second album. And this time, it would be a Christmas album called The Gift. To get fans hyped, she held a competition called Susan Search, where the winner got to duet with her on the album. The album finally dropped on November 8th, 2010. By this point, Susan was no longer a rookie in the studio. Her producer, Steve Mack, explained that since she was comfortable with the process, they decided to take a more old-school approach. They brought in a full band, rehearsed the songs first, and figured out what worked best for Susan before hitting the recording booth. The goal was to make sure she connected with the music and could relate to the songs she was singing. Moving on, in October 2010, Susan dropped her autobiography, The Woman I Was Born to Be, My Story, and by November, The Gift was #1 on the UK and US album charts. That made her the first woman and only the third person to land 2 albums at #1 in less than a year. Then she got all festive on TV, performing Oh Holy Night on The View, and later showing up on NBC's Christmas at Rockefeller Center to perform Perfect Day and Away in a Manger. She also took the stage on the second semi-final results show of America's Got Talent in August 2011. And just in case anyone forgot about her, she released her third album, Someone to Watch Over Me, later that same year. In November 2012, Susan Boyle dropped her fourth album, Standing Ovation, the greatest songs from the stage. If you didn't know, she took piano lessons for this album, dreaming of playing on it herself. A reporter from The Sun mentioned that Susan has always loved the piano and wanted to get to where she could show it off on stage in her records. And speaking of big names, in October 2012, the legendary Placido Domingo released an album called Songs, which included a duet with Susan on Shania Twain's From This Moment On. Susan didn't stop there. She took a swing at acting and landed her first role as Eleanor Hopewell in The Christmas Candle, based on Max Lucado's book. The movie tells the heartwarming tale of a village in 19th century England, desperately hoping for a miracle. The film hit theaters in the US on November 22nd, 2013, and in the UK a week later. Susan, being Susan, couldn't believe she was in a movie. She shared how excited she was to be part and how fantastic everyone on set was. Oh! And she also got to sing an original song, Miracle Hymn, which made its way onto her Home for Christmas album, released just a week later. That album also featured a duet with Elvis Presley on Oh Come All Ye Faithful. Susan was also busy on TV. She starred in I Dreamed a Dream, The Susan Boyle Story, and in a 2011 documentary, Susan Boyle, An Unlikely Superstar. In December 2013, she appeared in There's Something About Susan, which aired on ITV in the UK and later in the US under Susan Boyle. Her Secret Struggle. In October 2013, American singer Johnny Mathis dropped an album called Sending You a Little Christmas, which included a duet of Do You Hear What I Hear? Fast forward to 2014, Susan released her sixth album, Hope. The album, full of inspirational ballads and some upbeat tracks, was all about pushing forward, inspired by the theme of hope. She even included a live You Raise Me performance with the Lakewood Church Choir. Not to brag, but the album debuted at number 16 on the Billboard 200 and spent 35 weeks at number 1 on the Billboard Top Inspirational Albums chart. It even sold 115,000 copies in the US in 2016. In 2014, she performed Mull of Kintyre at the Commonwealth Games opening ceremony in Glasgow, Scotland, to welcome Queen Elizabeth II. After that, Susan took a little break in 2015 for some much-needed me time with her family and friends, pushing the recording of her next album to 2016. Then, in 2018, Susan joined America's Got Talent, the champions, because she was ready to win this time. In January 2019, she performed Wild Horses, earned a golden buzzer from Judge Mel B, and made it straight to the finals. Unfortunately, she didn't quite make it to the top 5. Boyle still calls her family's 4-bedroom house in Blackburn home, which she managed to buy with her earnings in 2010. Her dad passed away in the 90s, and her 8 siblings have all flown the nest. She's never been married and spent a lot of time looking after her mom until she passed away in 2007 at the age of 91. A neighbor once shared that when her mom died, Boyle went into complete "I need a minute" mode, staying inside and ignoring the world for a few days. Can't blame her though. Grief hits hard. Boyle's a devout Catholic, and she used to be the voice behind the choir at her church. These days, she still helps out, paying visits to the elderly members. And before all the fame hit, she described her life as pretty mundane and routine, which, to be honest, sounds like a lot of people's pre-fame lives. In 2012, Boyle was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, which she bravely opened up about in 2013. She's also got epilepsy to keep life interesting. When it comes to online dating, though, Boyle is like, no thanks. In 2012, she joked that her luck would be so bad, she'd go on a date and end up with her limbs scattered around various Blackburn bins. 2013, Boyle joined the Better Together campaign to keep Scotland in the UK. She's proud of her heritage, but not one to jump on the nationalist bandwagon. She believes Scotland can stay true to itself while being part of Britain, which is fair enough. Now about her health. Boyle's a total teetotaler, which means she's not about that alcohol life. In 2013, she was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, but that hasn't slowed her down. In 2014, reports showed that she was dating a guy around her age, her first boyfriend. Then, in 2022, she had a minor stroke, but she's still kicking. She even spoke on it during a June 2023 Britain's Got Talent appearance. And that's a wrap.